There you go. So yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of Pivot Zero X Hub Masterclass. My name is Shantanu Sharma, and I head operations at Pivot. For all those who do not know about us, Pivot is a global Web3 startup accelerator. We are mostly focusing on accelerating early stage startups. I invite all of you to follow us on our social media channels to know more about us. And I will be sharing our social links later in the chat as well. So while the masterclass is going on, you can also chat on the side, and I'll share the social links there. Zero X Hub is an open masterclass initiative by us, and we want to enable the Web3 startups and aspiring founders with the knowledge from within the industry. All our sessions will be led by experts in the field, founders, investors, angels, and many more. So we've already done we're on five till now, and we will do at least two every month on varied topics which help us in the Web3 related to technology, Web3 sectors, products, goals, leadership, everything that can help startups anyways. And it is not limited to startups that we are accelerating for everyone out there, hence it is open. It is my pleasure to invite our mentor, Mr. Andrew Rebo, founder and CEO at Banana Season, to conduct this. Andrew has been in the space for over 5 years, and he's been involved in growth roles, technical roles, product roles. He's been a co-founder, and now he's the CEO of this company. Community events, marketing, he does that a lot. And what I also love is that he does a lot of compelling storytelling. That's what he says, that everything that you say in the market should be very compelling storytelling. And I think we're going to see an example of that today in today's session. Thank you so much, Andrew, for doing this for us. And all over to you now.
Awesome. I will share my screen.
Yeah, please.
So before I do, thank you for having me. And if anyone has any questions throughout, feel free to just interrupt me and just ask away. But also at the same time, I'm very happy just to talk at everyone for 45 minutes. But if you want to interrupt me, please do, and I'll be ready to answer your questions. So here, just checking my screen is sharing. Awesome. So yeah, as we've discussed, this session today is a masterclass in strategies for designing a vision framework in Web3. We're going to learn about what a vision framework actually is. I haven't conned the term, it's not my term. It's actually being created by someone called Porus and Jim Collins. And I'll take you through what a vision framework is, what the breakdown of it is, what it looks like, how we can apply it to Web3, etc. So to get started, this button doesn't work. A little bit about me. My name is Andrew Rebo. Everyone calls me Roo. I've been in the space, in the Web3 space for around 8 years now. I started off researching blockchain, and I studied it at university. My dissertation, my kind of like major was building decentralized warehouse management systems. So I come from a bit of a corporate large background, and then moved into kind of smaller organizations, and then moved into the Web3 world. And I haven't looked back, because Web3 is so incredibly amazing. And I think once people get a taste of it and the taste of the culture that it brings, they kind of see the potential there, and want to just be involved till the end of time. Although sometimes it can be intense, and you're like, oh, I want to break, but it's generally an awesome place to be. As we've discussed, I'm the founder and CEO of Banana Season. Banana Season aims to, we do a lot of different things. As Shantanu said, we help community building. We help develop vision frameworks within organizations. We help create events, marketing, all sorts of different things. It's really come from, there's about 60 of us in the community, and with a bunch of different skill sets. And when a project comes along, we kind of work together and see how we can help make that project a success. Aside from that, I work as in the role of growth and product at Crypto Mondays London. Crypto Mondays London is it's the London chapter of the wider global Crypto Mondays brand. I think we have around 60 chapters in total. And recently, I've joined Animoca Brands as a tokenomics analyst and in operations as well. Animoca Brands are an investor as well as an advisory, and I'm joining in the tokenomics team to help build up the team and just get stuck in with them. An awesome bunch. And then just, I thought it was important. This is my cat on the bottom right-hand side, Jada, or my family's cat. This is how I have my sticky notes at my desk. So you got a sneak peek of my cat. And there we go. So where do we start? I think it's always really important. I know you are all on this accelerator. You probably know what Web3 is. So I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time going over what Web3 is, but maybe just a very brief history. So Web 1. Web 1 was the first iteration of the internet when you could watch look at the news on a website, a static web page. You could click around buttons on a static web page and you could find out information. It's very one directional, read only. Web 2 is basically where everyone's been living since, well, for a long time. It's where you find your Facebooks, your YouTubes, your LinkedIn's, Instagrams, basically everything that you can interact with. You know, when you go to Amazon, you buy something, you click a button, and that button sends a message back to a server, and you get something, and a package arrives later at your door. So that's the writing back. So reading is when you can see something, writing back is when you can click a button and write back to a server or a database, let's say. And then Web3, which I'm sure we've all been around this cycle of what is Web3? There's different definitions, there's different terms, but the one I'm going to go for is the own. So read and the owning aspect is all about owning, like really owning your identity. So when you use a wallet, or when you use a traditional Web2 account, the account is yours, but the data is the centralized organizations. They have control and ownership of your information, and they make it very difficult for you to get that information or get it in a usable format. They can sell it generally to who they want to, and they don't necessarily ask, even though they probably should, for your permission. And those assets that you own within the game or within a website, for example, your identity, or let's say a piece of armor, they aren't necessarily yours. They're owned by this website. So if it was to, let's say, fail as an organization, and they turn off their servers, then you don't necessarily get to keep that. The point of Web3 is the ownership aspect and the decentralized aspect and the trust and verifiability that you get from it. So if I was to have a wallet, an identity in Web3, then if I was to purchase something, that thing would be in my wallet, associated with my wallet, and nobody would be able to take that away from me. It is mine. And it's the same in respect of data. If I'm Rue, I live in X, Y, and Z, you know, all those private details that are mine, I should be able to choose who gets access to them. And part of Web3 is giving people back control and ownership of their data and their assets, their property, in effect. So what's the big deal with Web3? Why is it so interesting to people? So Web3 offers this new paradigm. It's a paradigm shift, specifically in marketing, but in wider areas as well. Traditional Web2 organizations, they're built around PGC, which is professionally generated content. That's when you see an advert come out from Nike, or a piece of content from a creator that's hired by a person, or marketing material. So that PGC is professionally generated content that comes from an organization. Generally, this is passive interactions. You're an audience. They're feeding you information, and they're hoping that they can catch an emotional response, and you buy their product, or you get a laugh out of it, or you continue to watch it. And effectively, they're advertising to you. What the shift to Web3 does is it introduces UGC and CGC. UGC is user generated content. This is content that myself or any of you on this call could generate. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for you. If something was a Web3 project and you were invested in it and you might own some tokens in it, or it's a PFP project like Deadfellas, which I had there earlier, you might feel like you want to participate because you actually own a piece of the pie. So you might create some user-generated content, which then you can give out to the community. As a Web3 organization, your goal is to create this active participation, bring people on a journey with you, and effectively, if those people start generating content for you and publishing it and sharing it, and let's say one piece of viral content comes out, then there's the opportunity for you to go massive overnight. And this all works in kind of a network effect. Like if I post user generated content out to like people in my close circle, and then someone reshares it and someone reshares it, it brings that wider audience to what you're doing. So as an organization in Web3, my goal is for as many people to want to create user generated content as possible, so that I can increase that network effect of them sharing that content and then their audience areas being able to access that. Now, other items that Web3 brings, choice. Traditionally, Web2 markets hold a lot of monopoly, and there might not be other choices for you to go down. So you have to buy brand A or brand B. Web3, we're entering this abundance economy. Everyone becomes a creator. Everyone can say, well, actually, I'm not happy with the way that you created that product. I'm not happy with the way that you market it. So I'm going to ditch it and I'm going to go to another brand, or I'm going to create another brand. And I can do that in such a way that might provide more aligned incentives. So an aligned incentive being, let's say that for every dollar I spend, 20 pence of that goes to charity, or 20 cents of that goes to a treasury, which then as a community, we can decide what we spend it on. So if you're not happy with the choices, Web3 generally allows you to either make a change in that in what that organization is doing from a governance perspective, or to just make your own thing, or go somewhere else. What we find, and what we've been finding over the last few years, is this transition from PGC to UGC, as I've discussed. Web2 brands at first didn't accept it, and they were quite literally holding on to their market. And then I think as platforms like Instagram and TikTok and any other like large social platform started growing, especially let's say when they could create their own content and publish it and instantly have a massive audience, these big brands realize that they have to get on top of it, and they have to start adapting and moving with the times to really make sure that they don't just get eaten up by these smaller, fast-paced organizations coming their way. So a noticeable change in Web3 was the NFT boom. And I think this is really important when it comes to building an organization and the vision framework in general. So if anyone remembers when the NFT boom occurred, there were thousands and thousands of, or maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of these new profile picture avatars collections, 10K collections that all sprouted out. And this was a person or a few people, or maybe some organizations going, whoa, look over there. I can potentially express my creativity and make money from that. And that was a big change for the traditional art world or creative world in general. because traditionally artists have found it very difficult to be found, to make enough profit for it to be sustainable. And all of a sudden, there were these NFT projects coming along, and people selling out a 10K collection at half an ETH each, and making 5,000 ETH in one go or whatever, like crazy, crazy times. But also on a much smaller scale, people might be selling their smaller NFT collections as a traditional artist, but as digital arts, and making more money than they'd made before, which gave them the opportunity to take their passion forward full time. And the big thing about Web3 is being able to follow your passion and being able to do that sustainably. Where if I really love cooking, but I can't earn enough money in the Web2 world, maybe in Web3 I can do the cooking that I want to, and there's some organization, a DAO, a community who will value my effort and will reward me for contributing, for creating that cooking content. And on the flip side, there's people that might want to buy this Dead Fellas NFT as an example here, because they believe in the values of that community. So the NFT boom was a group of people, or people coming together with shared narratives, shared interests, passions, visions, and just experimenting. And that's one thing that's really key, is everything that we do here, everything that anyone does when starting a business, creating a startup, it's someone with an idea who is experimenting with it and trying to figure out what works so that they can hopefully take that passion and earn money from it. And for me, this was a light bulb moment. And prior to this stage, I'd already been studying the vision framework and implementing it into large organizations, and seeing the effect that it had. The effect that a vision framework has is really simplifying your messaging, simplifying your direction, and which then you can communicate to your to the wider audiences, to your wider teams, so that they know exactly what they should be doing. And then anyone looking in and trying to understand what you do as an organization, if you have a really simple, solidified vision framework in place, then it allows you to correctly create your messaging and put out what it is that you want people to hear about. A lot of organizations, they have an identity crisis, and in Web3 it's a big problem, because one of our morals or principles is that we want to strive for this decentralization. We want everyone to be able to be in their little space, participate in something, leave, and be rewarded for their participation. And maybe they come back if they liked it, but they might be doing 5, 10 other things. People aren't going to give you all their time. They're not going to give you all their attention, however much you want them to. Like, your organization, the thing that you're creating, is just one part of their really, really complex life. So being able to get your message across really simply for those people, and those people liking that and having a shared understanding, is what's really important here. So just before moving on to the vision framework, I think this is one of my favorite slides that I like to show when presenting, and it's really simple but really important. An organization is just a community of people, whether your community is internal or external. As an organization, you want to sell something, you want to create a product, and if there's no one there to see your products or to use your products, then probably not going to last very long. And it's a big thing that investors look for, and it's really important, is your community. Like, are there people who are actually interested in your product, understand what it is that you're building, and are active? If there isn't, then you might find it very difficult to get investment, because effectively it's the proof in the pudding. I've made this thing and everyone wants it, but if no one's active, then do they really want it? And secondary, or not secondary to that, is that the word community. Ultimately it's a person. It's a person who comes, who likes the thing that you're creating, wants to participate, get involved, and buy, use, whatever your product. Those people have their own wants and needs. They need to earn money. They want to have fun. They need to feel like they're getting something out of it. whatever it is. There's different incentive structures and rewards that you can provide to make sure that the people who come to your community feel like, oh, great, this community is doing something that I really like, enjoy, appreciate, want to participate in. But actually, I can do that sustainably because they reward me for my participation and contribution. And I think you could say, as I said there, is it obvious? I think it is, but I think people get so lost in their products that they forget that it's people who are using it most of the time, unless you're some DeFi project or AI project and you don't need a community because who knows? But I think most of the time you do. So Web3 thrives on active participation and shared ownership. Communities drive innovation, governance, and the very success of a project. It's just building on what I've said before. Your goal as an organization is to allow people to participate in your community and provide, give and take value. Sinks and faucets is what they might use in something like tokenomics. So a sink is where are they investing their time in, and the faucet is where can they be rewarded, kind of thing, or participate. Now, I think with that, we'll move on to the vision framework. And I think it's important that I don't take credit for where the vision framework has come from. And secondly, there's not just one. There's many, many different types of vision frameworks and models, etc., that people can use. I'm just using one that I feel very strongly about and have utilized many times over the years. And this is the Collins and Porras vision framework, Jim Collins. And you'll note that there's two books in the middle there, Built to Last and Good to Great, by Jim Collins and Jerry Porras. So Built to Last is how do you build an organization, a company that stands the test of time through management fads, through like bubble areas. This thing happened and we did really well. How do you build a company that lasts? And Good to Great is how do you take a company that is doing well, it's doing great, doing good, and put in the right structures that allow it to really become a great organization. And how you measure that, some people say it's the bottom line. It might be the valuation, and other people might say it's the size of your community, etc., etc. But these books come from a study of over 13,000 companies, and these are my favorite suggested reads. Full stop. So researching, I know Jim Collins has a few other books, which I actually haven't read, and I'd love to, but these are really great reads. So the vision framework. A well-conceived vision consists of two major components, your core ideology and your envisioned future. And each of those two components split down further. So your core ideology has your core values and your purpose. And then your envisioned future has your 10 to 30 year BHAGs. And we'll go into this more, but a BHAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. It's a goal that which is more of a longer term one. And then your vivid descriptions. Your vivid descriptions are, imagine if you were reading an article in 5, 10, 15 years in a magazine or in a newspaper, what would they say about your organization? The core ideology and the envisioned future effectively acts as this yin and yang. You want to preserve your core ideology, and you want to stimulate the progress and change in every part of the core ideology. So what does that mean? We have a purpose. Actually, let me move on. So we have a purpose and our values, our core ideology. It defines what we stand for and why we exist, and it doesn't change. Just because this came from another presentation, similar to genetic codes that govern characteristics and behaviors of living organisms. If your purpose, for example, which we'll go into at a later point, might be like Disney's, which is to make people happy. And your values, similar to Disney, might be imagination and wholesomeness. Your purpose acts as your north guiding star, your compass. And it's really important to note that your values and your purpose are something that you don't have to get instantly. And a lot of people get caught up in thinking, okay, cool, we'll sit together as a team, we'll think of our core purpose and values, done. Now, yes, in that first iteration, you can probably get quite far. And just going on the point of it defines what we stand for and why we exist, and it doesn't change. If you go to one meeting and your purpose is this, and then another meeting and your purpose is completely different, then there's clearly something wrong, because like that you'd be talking about two different organizations completely. But the purpose and the values can be refined, and some companies take a few years to do this, but you can get a really good version of it done over a week or so, getting all the stakeholders together. So the purpose, as we're discussing, is the organization's fundamental reason for being. It's what guides and inspires a community. An effective purpose reflects the importance people attach to the community. So, yeah, in summary, it's the soul of an organization. If, for example, there were a set of values in your organization and you went to hire in other people and it just turns out they didn't have the same values as you probably wouldn't hire them. If you were looking after a partnership and it turned out that they might be warmongering or whatever, and different value sets to you, then you probably wouldn't get involved with them. So it helps to define the type of people that you want in your community. But it also, purpose is why we're there. And people come together and they believe in a purpose in an organization. So if I wanted to supply distributed compute as deep in infrastructure, and I was really passionate about it, then I know that there's probably going to be a bunch of different people around the world who are also really passionate about it that might come on board with my purpose. But you don't have to get everyone, and that's really important, because people try and think that they have to sell to everyone and cater to everyone, and so they try and market like in every direction, and that's not going to work. You need to define who it is that you're actually trying to target. These are your personas, and then you just focus on them. Otherwise, you're going to get lost, and that's when decision paralysis kind of kicks in, and you can't really move. Just one example of what I think is somewhat of a good purpose. There's an organization called Charity Water, and they want to end the water crisis. And I think, summary, we believe everyone will have access to life's most basic need within our lifetime. Everyone can get on board with that if they want to. It's really simple. It's really efficient and effective. And it means that from a core ideology, which is your purpose and your values, it's really straightforward. Now, the next part of this is your envisioned future, which is, okay, and how are we going to do that? Do we build pumps globally? Do we build a huge water manufacturing organization? But the core ideology is, why do you exist? What is the problem you want to solve? Just a few examples here. Disney, as I said, is to make people happy. Nike, to experience the emotion of competition, winning and crushing competitors. Just 3M, to solve unsolved problems innovatively. So these are all different examples of large organizations who have refined their purpose to a couple of lines or a line of text, which means that when anyone joins that organization, they can go, okay, cool, what is the purpose of Nike? Okay, it's this. And now what do we want to do? That's your envisioned future. We can figure it out. So a bit more on core values. These are your tenets, your enduring tenets, guiding principles that don't really require any justification. They, for the people who are in that organization, they have a value, an intrinsic value and importance to them. Disney's, as an example, imagination and wholesomeness. It's not because that's a market requirement or it will make them a hell of a lot more money. But it's the inner belief that imagination and wholesomeness should be nurtured for their own sake. If they want to make people happy, some of their values have to be that. And then they can have other ones like innovation and transparency or other items around that. And just an example, this is Ralph Larson, the CEO of Johnson & Johnson. The core values embodied in our credo might have a competitive advantage, but that is not why we have them. We have them because they define us for what we stand for, and we would hold them even if they became a competitive disadvantage in certain situations. So generally that means, if, for example, you're not working there, it's not working out there, people don't follow the same values, you don't have to do it. You can move on. You can find a different market that works for you, that has a better market fit. And the important thing is there's no universally right set of core values. And it's the company decides for itself what it holds to be core. So largely independent of the current environment, competitive requirements, or like management fads. It's what you as an organization find at your core. The next stage of this is your envisioned future. Your envisioned future consists of the BHAGs and vivid descriptions. Your BHAGs, as I've mentioned, are your big, hairy, audacious goals. And your vivid descriptions are, imagine in 10, 20, 30 years, you're reading a magazine, there was a news article that had your company in it, and what would you want it to say? The BHAGs should be long-term objectives that are ambitious, clear, compelling, generally following SMART. So if you haven't heard of SMART targets, specific, measurable, achievable, repeatable, time-bound, I've probably got one or two of them wrong. I normally get the A or the R wrong. And your vivid descriptions, they bring your company's future to life in the minds of employees and stakeholders. So actually, I might have it. Oh no. Yeah. Oh, unfortunately, I didn't paste it on there, so I'm just gonna grab it.
Yeah, Ru, can you take a question? There's a lady called Karishma.
Yes,
She
please.
wants to drop a question. Karishma, are you there?
Yeah,
you want to
please.
ask a question right now?
Hey, yes, thank you. I posted in the chat as well. The question is, as we know, like unlike Web 2, in Web 3, things are changing very fast. Like market changes every week, if not months. And we need to reconsider our strategies and roadmap every quarter. So considering this differentiating aspect of Web 3, how do we make sure our vision is steadfast enough in long term, and we are able to maintain focus in our day-to-day execution towards it?
Great question. So regardless of if it's Web 2 or Web 3 or what your organization does, you still have your main driver, your purpose of why you're doing something, what it is you want to kind of achieve. The other side of it is the market fit. So as things move really quickly, something might be a good market fit for you, and then someone comes along as a huge competitor, saps up everything, and actually potentially there's less of a drive for you to move in that direction. I think it's really difficult, and one of the things that, let's show you this. If you look at Disney, for example, between the 1920s, 30s, 50s, 60s, 80s, 90s, they didn't just do the same thing. They still had the reason for being, but their product market fit, what it is that they were actually building, adapted and evolved consistently. And so there's the innovation side of that is, okay, yes, I want to do this thing. Yes, this is what I believe in. But what is going to find me a product market fit? And so the point generally in a lot of these organizations is they kind of put out the feelers in every direction. They try and find different areas which they could innovate in, which fit to what it is that they believe in at the core. And so for example, Disney, they did cartoons first. And then in the 60s, they were like, okay, yeah, theme parks make sense. And it's in Web3, it might be a case of you start off as being a DAO, or you say, I'm going to launch a product and I'm going to do a token, and this product does X, Y, and Z. And then a few months down the line or weeks down the line, you realize, why are we building a token? Is it only because we want to run money or want to earn some money quick? or is it because that token will provide utility, will provide value in the ecosystem? So I think that it's really important. Web3 is fast. It's really, really fast paced. And there's two things. Some organizations, when they're building something, they get too caught up in worrying what everyone else is doing. If you're building something that's going to change the world, it's probably still going to change the world if you do it right. And one of the big things in product is that you don't want to like see all these shiny, flashy things, and so you start building in this direction or that direction. Generally, you have a backlog. You've prioritized things, and you should be reprioritizing what it is that you're doing on a consistent basis. You should be, I'm building this right now, and so let's rephrase this maybe a bit more. I'm building in a certain direction to solve a problem, and along that way, I'm going to set goals, and those goals are going to be they're my BHAGs. They're going to be to achieve different things. We're going to make cartoons, theme parks. We're going to launch a token. We're going to do. Those goals might change. They might become irrelevant, but you're still working in that direction. So it's all about like refining your backlog and having the consistent communication in place, which allows you to understand if something isn't going down the right route. A lot of organizations, they get really complacent as well. They say, we're building this product, and then someone's done a bit of research over here, and actually maybe they shouldn't be building that, or maybe they could use a pre-built thing already for what they need. But then they might stick to it and say, no, we're going to build it. And some of them, sometimes that's the right thing, and sometimes they would be able to move on to what's really important to them by just utilizing another tool. And it's all about not reinventing the wheel. If you're building something new that no one's done before, like drive at it. But if you're building something new and you need an authentication method for your platform, why would you build your own one? You would just utilize someone else's. So I think it's all about making sure that you can be as efficient as possible and not get distracted, and to utilize the existing tools around you. And in Web3, there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of plugins, there's a lot of openness and transparency, which means that you can go and contact MetaMask or let's say Mocha ID and say, I'd love to use your identity infrastructure on my platform. And by doing so, that means I don't have to get distracted by building out this thing, and I can focus on making sure that I can maintain the speed that I need in Web3. I hope that kind of helps a little bit.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, because like having worked in both Web2 and Web3, my experience has been that whatever plans, OKR roadmaps, even vision and strategy docs that we create at the beginning of every planning cycle usually doesn't last more than 6 months in the face of changes in the market, where you have to be reactive. And so I feel like taking first principles approach, we might have to rethink some of these methodologies that have worked in Web2, but are not sufficient in Web3 as we know it today.
I think so. I think it's definitely a double-edged sword, because people try and reinvent the wheel, and they're not doing it so much anymore. But they thought, okay, it seemed to me that people just forgot how to run a business, because they thought because it was Web3, it was completely just different, when in actual fact it is fairly the same. You're building a product, you're building an organization, it's a team of people. You need to make sure that you have communication in place. You need to make sure that you have these various docs, strategy, whatever you said. But for me, I think the biggest thing is maintaining agility. So agile frameworks, I believe to be really key. And in every organization that I go into, I will implement as much of an agile framework as I find appropriate, because understanding how quickly you can work and understanding how quickly you can adapt to that change is like quite important. And a lot of Web2 companies that are the same as Web3, they don't, they're trying to build something, they're scared that someone's going to overtake them. I mean, what do you see as the key difference between Web 2 and Web 3, which is why there is a difference here? If we use AI as an example, AI has been moving a hell of a lot faster than Web 3, but people haven't gotten caught up in like, saying, oh, AI is completely different and we shouldn't adopt the same principles. They've just got on with it because the mindset of them is, fairly like, yeah, we're just building another organization. Now, there are some complexity items there, like, okay, yes, if you're building on chain, then it might be a bit more difficult, or the barrier to entry might be a bit higher. But for me, it's still the same. You're still building an organization. You're still creating a backlog. Yes, it might change a little bit faster, but that's why the infrastructure is really important to have in place so that you can adapt to that change.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for answering it thoroughly.
No problem. Anyone else have any questions? No, perfect. I shall carry on. So I did skip past the BHAGs. So a big, hairy, audacious goal is basically like any kind of long-term objective that you have. And this could, like, realistically, it could be a 1, a 3, a 5, a 6-month goal. It depends on how old the organization is. If it's a brand new organization, you can set a 10-year goal, and as it says, a big, hairy, audacious goal. We want to do this thing, but you also have to set some smaller time objectives and some goals. Now, the big, hairy, audacious goals, they're something that you can work towards. It provides that kind of like stepped approach. You can work towards it, but you can also, if you imagine a ladder, you wouldn't just be able to get to the top. You'd want to introduce as many steps as you can along the way that give you the easiest route to kind of get there. Just a couple of examples of BHAGs using Disney again as the example, and I'm sorry because it didn't actually load on here. Might be establish theme parks on every continent and make Disney Magic accessible to X amount of people worldwide by 2030. It's a measurable goal. You're going to give X amount of people access to a certain thing by a certain date. Another one might be sustainability. You might achieve zero carbon emissions across all Disney operations, including parks, resorts, studios, and corporate offices by 2040, setting an industry standard for environment responsibility. That might just be, they're goals that to you are really important and will make a difference that you can measure and you can work towards. The second thing is your vivid descriptions. In this example, by 2030, Disney parks will enchant visitors on every continent. And then, imagine stepping into an African Disney park where the Lion King roars against the Serengeti backdrop. Like, yes, it sounds, it's really imaginative. It's really, it's striving. And that's really important because if you're going to have a decentralized community, a group of people who want to work with you, you're selling them a dream. They've come, they realize, okay, cool, they have a kind of a similar purpose to me, they want to do the same kind of thing, and oh yeah, they resonate me from a values perspective, and the goals are, this is what we're going to achieve, and then your descriptions are, and if everything goes really well, this is what it will look like. And once you have your vision framework in place, you can use that. You can basically, it's aligned. Now, there are workshops that you would do to get this in place. You'd bring everyone together in your team. You'd have everyone, let everyone have a go at the vision framework together and discussing it. There is a really nice PDF from the visions framework stuff, which I'll just share with everyone in this group chat. So that oh, I see. That's why I wasn't seeing the. There we go. So that's I hope I've just shared that. But that basically it breaks things down further. So if you were to set your core values, basically you can test them. And this is a bit of a workshop that you can run for your core values and your envisioned future. So your core values, if you were to start an organization, would you build it around this core value regardless of the industry? Or would you change jobs before giving up this core value? Like they're different examples. And then using purpose again, you can see there's all sorts of purposes. So do you find it personally inspiring? Can you envision this purpose being as valid 100 years from now as it is today? Generally, a really strong purpose is one that you can always head towards. It's always a north guiding star, but you can never quite get there because there's always new ways to innovate around there. And as an organization, that's what you want. You don't want to get, okay, done it now. What next? It's kind of what happened with the moon landing. Their purpose was we're going to put a man on the moon, and they put a man on the moon, and then they cancelled the space race because they didn't think past that. You know, if it was to put a person on Mars, even, or to colonize Mars, I think that's one of Elon's one. You know, to colonize Mars, that's going to take a long time, and it's going to take so many iterations and so much investment. It's something that people can really like get on board with and strive towards, and it's also understandable to those people. So one of the other mechanisms I'll just briefly touch on is this thing called the Kano model. And the Kano model is a really, it's a really good way of deciding what you should be doing in an organization. You have these things called threshold attributes, and I wonder if there's the car example here. Okay, this is used for a smartphone, right? Oh no, used for an airline, right? So this is an airline example. Your threshold attributes are what you should be doing at a baseline. You should have a good cabin temperature. You should expect to depart on time. You should arrive on time. Your luggage shouldn't be damaged. They're like, if we don't do this as an organization, then we're not going to, like, no one's going to use us. Your performance attributes are attributes that as you invest more time and money, resource effectively into that thing, there is a linear improvement in how much value that person or customer feels. And you balance that. So, for example, friendly cabin crew, if you invest more time and energy in training your cabin crew, they're going to probably be better. And yeah, and then the excitement features are something like you get on a plane and you have a load of leg room, or you are at the airport and they help you with a connecting flight. They might handhold you and take you from place to place. This is appropriate for any organization, and actually you can apply it to many different areas of an organization as well. Be using a smartphone, like yeah, that's an interesting one. So the only thing they have here is the more money and time and energy and resource you put into user experience, the better it gets. And the interesting thing of this chart is if you were to draw a line from the top left to the bottom right and put an arrow from the top left to the bottom right, that's time. And so an example with this is when cars were first invented, a seatbelt was an excitement attribute. People were like, yeah, I'll pay more money for a seatbelt. And over time, regulations came in and they have to be there. And so they're a threshold attribute, because if you don't have a seatbelt in a car, chances are people aren't going to buy the car because it's illegal. They'll find something else. Same for a GPS. GPS comes out, oh my God, GPS. And I think it goes back to your question previously, which was in Web3, things move so quickly. Things start up as being exciting and they move down to being these threshold attributes. Like, I just expect that as the user. It's not fun for me anymore. People expect to be able to communicate with your organization. They expect to be able to use your product easily. They, and things that excite them might be a new DEX that comes out, or, when Uniswap came out, and then loads of people cloned it. And then there were loads of Uniswaps around. So Uniswap wasn't as exciting, but it still had those various excitement attributes built into it that other organizations just couldn't put in place quick enough, which is why it still stands today as as a solid DEX. So, I mean, this is slightly off topic, but not at all. How do I go about building a Web3 community? You know, you have a strong vision in place. You know what you want to do. You're getting more and more people involved. As you get more people involved in your organization, as you build the community up, you know, you get a Discord and suddenly there's 500 people in there. Wouldn't that be lovely? All of those people are going to have their own view of what it is that you're building, what the purpose of your organization is, what you're trying to achieve, etc. So your goal as an organization, one of the things you have to do fundamentally is make sure that you consistently communicate and reiterate what it is that you're doing, why you exist to your community members, and educating them. Because what they'll do, and this is like anyone, it's Chinese whispers. They will take the information that you've said, and then they'll tell their friends about it, and they might say really, really great things about it, or they might just be like, oh, it's a terrible project, and you don't bother about it. That person might be perfectly aligned and matched for that project, but because I haven't communicated properly to you, you've gone and told that person that it's a load of rubbish and haven't used it. So the vision framework in any organization helps to simplify why you exist, what you want to do, what are your goals, what are you building, etc., which is really key in decentralized structures, because the efficiency of communication and education, it's like, it really goes hand in hand with how much traction you'll get. This I normally use when we talk about community building and Web3, and I left it here because you're building an organization and you're trying to build communities around it. You want people to use your product. There's all these different communities that are in place with people who might be interested in different areas of what it is that you're doing. Firstly, you can go onto these platforms and you can like find people that will be interested in what it is that you're building and bring them over to you. But also, if you don't want to create a new group chat, you just want to publish your message in other places, there's tens of thousands of group chats which you could probably find and share information with there. So you have your vision framework, you have your narrative, you have your purpose, you've set your goals and objectives, your BHAGs. A few other little bits just worthwhile mentioning. Tooling and infrastructure is key. There are understanding who your community are, segmentation and tagging. So understanding who, you know, if I'm building a tech platform, I'm going to have devs, I'm going to have end users, I'm going to have partners, I'm going to have this whole host of different people who might be interested in, or might have, or will have different roles, and will expect different mechanisms for reward and incentivization. The other aspect is onboarding. Onboarding and retention is single-handedly the most important thing in any community. Onboarding is, how do people find me? Oh, and that's the discovery aspect as well. And then once they found me, how do they come on board? How do I get them into a position where they can get the most out of what our community does from a reward and incentivization perspective, from an education perspective? Onboarding doesn't happen once, it happens at every stage where you need to collect more information from people to help provide the most appropriate like value towards them. I think people get lost in thinking that it's a one-time, one-size-fits-all thing, when it really isn't. There's so many different, like if I don't use Telegram and you onboard me through Telegram, there's instantly going to be a drop-off rate. If I don't use WhatsApp, etc. So you have to choose which of these social platforms you want to target, who it is on them that you want to target and why. And then also just remembering that it's not like things aren't certain, like necessarily for everyone. Like there's going to be a whole bunch of people that couldn't care at all what it is that you're building, and that's totally fair enough. And then the last thing is just like feedback loops. If you can consistently reiterate what your vision is, and you can consistently get feedback from your community members, and then understand how aligned they are with what it is that you're building, your purpose, and where you're going, then you can visualize and you can see if what you're putting out is actually useful and relevant to people. So Antonio, I'm conscious of time, so I'm just gonna probably end it there.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
just I'll give one last little thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll make a lot of mistakes. It's not the end of the world. Set clear goals and objectives. Removing ambiguity. Tell people what the hell it is you have going on, often and lots. Even if you don't have to, even if on a day where you've got nothing to say, just publish out into your community. It will help them. You don't have to do it every day, but like, people want to feel like there's someone on the other end of the company or the monitor of the screen. It's not just you're not just pumping out content to people. These people want to participate. They want to be involved. So you need to provide the structures which allow them to do it. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's so much stuff that's already been done. Some more supporting tools that you can use, etc. So just utilize them. Feature UGC and CGC on your channels. User-generated content is so important. Spread your message, encourage people, incentivize people to create content for you. Then you won't have to, and you'll get more reach. Fantastic. Use tooling, implement infrastructure. You can use a platform like Dform to onboard people into Web3. You can use Together Crew to understand the sentiment of your community within your different platforms. It tells you how quickly your community is changing, which is, I think, back to that question, is things change really quickly. You need to be able to measure that, and something like Together Crew helps you to understand the velocity, how quickly something is moving, and also how quickly your community are adapting to what it is that you're creating. Dform, iterative onboarding, Common Room. It might be a bit too much depending on where people are. It's quite an expensive platform, but it's unfortunately really good at what it does. And then the other thing is your goals. You need to have a backlog. If you don't have a backlog of what it is that you're building, I'd say like get a Jira, get an Airtable, get a Asana, whatever, or just use Google Sheets. Google Sheets is so easy and so good. And then last thing is there's platforms like Zeely and Guild or Wonderverse, which are incentive platforms and rewarding platforms. If you want people to do stuff, if you want your community to do something, create content, look at your app, share something, like something, you can incentivize them to do those things. You can create quests or tasks, etc., which people can do, and they can earn XP, and it's all part of bringing them into that story, bringing them into that like narrative that you're trying to create. But yeah, all right, I'll stop there. So thank you, Shantanu.
Hey, thanks so much, man. Yeah, you can unshare your screen and all, then we can talk. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Guys, any questions do you have? Still have questions? Okay, there are a few people remaining, so it's okay. So we will, of course, be, this is the recording session, and the session will be uploaded on my YouTube channel as well. And what I really want to say, Drew, is that I really learned a lot of things today. And I think the one thing which I'll probably take back is the BHAG, having a big, hairy, audacious goal. Because until you have that, a goal, you'll not be able to really take a step. You have to break down your goals as well. Okay. And thanks, Alex. Really appreciate it. And so I think so BHAG is one of them, which I really wanted to, point out that I really want to take back with me. And another thing that you mentioned was about how people are forgetting how a business is actually run, because ultimately this is just a different industry, from Web2 to Web3, but business is run in the same manner, right? And like, Anshul, he's our founder, he keeps on saying that the kind of people that we want to work with or we want to accelerate should be people who think in decades. You should not be talking small, you should not. And that's exactly what a BHAG really does. That's exactly what it really means in the long run. So thank you, Ru. I would really appreciate it. It was good fun, and really good fun to have you with us. I hope the other people also learned a few things from what Ru shared. This will be passed on to you over YouTube as well. And yeah, thank you so much, Ru. Any last messages that you want to give uh, for the
If anyone wants to reach out. Oh yeah, we got a question.
Yeah, question. Yes, Saurabh. Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead. You can unmute yourself and you can come on screen as
Yeah.
well.
Hi. Thank you, Chandru. And my question is, so the B hack part, right? It is quite intriguing, and I do feel that it has given me a new perspective in how I pitch our project. So just just a question. So B hack, it can appear that the startup or the project is going crazy or will build something that will be crazy. So how do you balance out being looked at that you are crazy, or will you actually be able to build that project? So how do you balance that approach?
It's a very good question. I think you're allowed
I
to
have
be
been called out
crazy.
crazy a lot of times, by the way. That's why I'm just intrigued by that.
I think you're allowed to be. Look, if I think in Web3 enough, like people think that everyone's crazy because they're talking about blockchain and they're gonna get rid of the government and create decentralized systems and there's no need for banks. We already all sound crazy. I might say the same thing if someone was building a super AI that's going to do X, Y, and Z. I might go, okay, cool. You enjoy that, buddy. You're like, I think you're allowed to be crazy. Obviously, if you're talking about aliens and spaceships, then maybe, who knows? Well, spaceships, yes. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think that you can stay grounded. Like if you have a purpose which isn't just outright weird and you're trying to solve a problem, then you're allowed to be ambitious about it. Yeah.
Got it. I mean, so when you also gave an example of how Elon Musk has set a goal that, we will have a community or a civilization on Mars, it makes sense because he already has the technology and also a ton of cash to implement it. But for us to pitch something like a BHAG, just wanted to understand that how should we be grounded at the same time so that it is also comes out that, it is something that can be implemented. Because you mentioned that in Web3 everybody sounds crazy and everything, so probably that thing, the how to be grounded, I would say. I think that is also a good personality trait, to be grounded at the same time, having a big audacious goal. Do you have any suggestions for that, how to appear in that way?
Being grounded. Obviously, I think your BHAG should align with your values and your purpose. So if you had a value of like innovation, then your goal might be have part of that as an aspect. I think there's a reality check that you need to apply to this stuff. Like you can have a crazy goal, but there is a bit of a reality check in place. So there's what can we currently do, like at this moment in time, what are our current capabilities, resources available to you. The thing is, it's all time, isn't it? So like the point of the BHAG is that you can break it down into smaller milestones. So if you have this amazing big goal, you can work backwards from it and you can split it down into different milestones and basically track the progress. So that helps make it more manageable, because ultimately unless you're setting a goal which just isn't achievable in the slightest, if it's something that you can realistically do, even if it's in 10, 15 years, then yeah, great, you can do it. I think what people want to see is how are you going to get there? What are the milestones that you set along the way? But it's much easier to set milestones once you have a goal, because a lot of the time people don't set a goal and they're just like finger in the air, which direction are we going on? But if you go, we're going to do this thing, and everyone's working towards this big goal, and you set the milestones on the way, then your team will go, okay, cool, we're just knocking off these milestones one by one. And you can, with each milestone, you can read it. Like if I look at your set of milestones and they're completely crazy, I'll tell you, like there's no surprise there. So I think it's just about doing a bit of a reality check yourself, but just break the goal down into milestones along the way, and then you'll be able to see much more clearly if you think that thing's achievable in the time.
Okay, makes sense. So though it can be a audacious, big, crazy goal, but the steps to implement them should be realistic, right? So that's
Yes.
something.
So if I'm going to make a flying car, like is my BHAG in the next 10 years, firstly, I didn't have a flying car company, so there's a bit of an issue. But let's say I have a car company, and now I want to make a flying car company. I want, in 5 years, I want to have a fleet of commercially accessible flying taxis. There you go. So there's various milestones that you can set along that way from an engineering perspective, from a licensor safety perspective. Like all those different teams can work towards that thing. But with one of those BHAGs, I think an important thing is making sure that it fits in strategically with what it is that you're trying to do, what your like overarching purpose and values are. Because if it's just a goal that goes off in a complete weird tangent, then there's probably some questions to be asking.
Makes sense. All right. Thanks for clarifying.
Cheers.
Yeah. I think what is also important is the fact that when you create goals, the organizational goals have to be either it's a vision that a founder has, all right, or it's a shared goal which has to be sold to the people that are coming on board. So be it your people, be it your people who work with you, people who are investors, as well. And each of them have to buy into that BHAG as well, ultimately, when you want to grow up. Yeah. So
yeah, the important thing with it is that things change, like, and your purpose and your values, they can stay the same as much as possible. Like they shouldn't change.
right.
But if you're doing something and it's like this isn't going to work, then like that's not a bad thing. That just means you change. And what a lot of companies do is they don't change. They don't change quick enough. They say, no, we're going to do this, when clearly their ship is sinking, and they should be. I've done it myself. Everyone's done it. It's very much it's not a weird thing. It's people care about the thing that they're building and they don't want to let it go. And that's like sometimes what's it, stabbing yourself with your own sword type thing. It's like you're so passionate about what you're doing, you lose a bit of sense of reality. You start setting crazy ambitious goals that are just not achievable and completely in a direction that you shouldn't be going. So things change and you don't have to stick to it.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Ru. Really appreciate your spending time. It was wonderful. I hope the entire audience also liked it. And yeah, thank you very much, Ru. I really appreciate
Awesome.
your time. Yeah,
Cheers. Thank you
see
for
you
having
again.
me.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much,
Cheers.
really. Cheers, man.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. Bye-bye.